Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be going over dividing decimals. Our first example is 34 divided by 2.5. Let's set up our division problem here. So we have our 2.5 on the outside, which is our divisor, and then our 34 on the inside, which is our dividend. Whatever you get up here is going to be your quotient, and then your remainder is at the bottom. First thing we're going to do before we actually divide is we're going to turn our 2.5 here, which is our divisor, into a whole number. I'm going to move this decimal point over 1, and now this becomes 25, and whatever I do to my divisor, I need to do to my dividend. So there's a point here, and I'm going to move over 1, which is going to be here, and you have your imaginary 0 here. All right, so my new problem is going to look like 25 with the point at the end divided by 340, and then you have your decimal point at the end here. All right, and your new decimal point is going to be right here. It matches up to the point here. 25 goes into 3 how many times? It doesn't go, it's too small. What about 25 goes into 34? 25 goes into 34 one time because we have 25 times 1, that's 25. And if I did 25 times 2, that's 50, that's too high. So we don't want to use this number, but we can use here 25 times 1. So 25 times 1 we said was 25. Now I'm going to subtract. I'm going to squeeze right here 34 minus 25. 4 minus 5, can't do that. I need to borrow. This 3 is going to become a 2. This 4 is going to become a 14. So you have 14 minus 5 is 9. And then 2 minus 2 is 0. So 34 minus 25 is 9. Now I'm going to bring down my 0. 25 goes into 90 now how many times? Let's see what we get here. If we do 25 times 3, that's 75. If I do 25 times 4, that's going to give me 100. So that's too high. The closest largest number I can use is 25 times 3, and that's 75. So I'm going to write a 3 on top here. 25 times 3 we said was 75. Now I'm going to subtract 90 minus 75. 0 minus 5, can't do that. I'm going to borrow. This 9 is going to become an 8. This 0 here is going to become a 10. So 10 minus 5 is 5. 8 minus 7 is 1. 90 minus 75 is 15. 25 goes into 15 now how many times? It doesn't go, it's too small. So now I'm going to bring down a 0. Now let's ask ourselves, 25 goes into 150 now how many times? Let's see, so 25 times 5 is 125. And then 25 times 6 is 150. And this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. So 25 times 6, I'm going to write a 6 on top here. 25 times 6 we said was 150. Now I'm going to subtract 150 minus 150 is 0. So your final answer, your quotient, is 13.6. So let's try 2.468 divided by 0.2. Let's set up our division problem here. You have your 0.2 on the outside, and then your 2.468 on the inside. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is turn our divisor into a whole number. So I'm going to move this decimal point over 1, and that's going to become now a 2 instead of 0.2. And whatever I do to my divisor, I have to do to my dividend. I'm also going to move this decimal point over in between my 4 and the 6. So now you have let's rewrite it. You have 0, 2, which is just 2 technically, divided by 24.68. Your new decimal point is right here. It falls between the 4 and the 6. Okay, so now we're going to divide. 2 goes into 2 how many times? It goes in 1 time. 2 times 1 is 2. Now we're going to subtract. 2 minus 2 is 0. Now I'm going to bring down my 4. 2 goes into 4 how many times? 2 times. So I'm going to write a 2 on top. 2 times 2 is 4. Now we're going to subtract. 4 minus 4 is 0. I'm going to bring down my 6. 2 goes into 6 how many times? It goes in 3 times. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I'm going to subtract. 6 minus 6 is 0. And I'm going to now bring down my 8. 2 goes into 8 now how many times? It goes in 4 times. So 2 times 4 is 8. Now we're going to subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0. And then you have 0 minus 0 is 0. So your final answer, your quotient is 12.34. So let's try the next example, 0.894 divided by 0.05. So I'm going to set up my division problem. So we have 0.05 on the outside and then 0.894 on the inside. First, we're going to turn our divisor into a whole number by moving over 2 decimal places this time. So this is 1, 2. My new decimal place is right here. This turns into a 5 instead of 0.05. And then I'm going to move over 2 decimal places here. So 1, 2. I'm going right here between the 9 and the 4. So my new division problem will look like 0, 0, 5 with that decimal at the end, which is technically 5. And then you have 0, 8, 9.4. So your new decimal place is right here. It falls right here between the 9 and the 4. So 5 goes into 0 how many times? It doesn't go, it's too small. 5 goes into 8 now how many times? It goes in 1 time. So 5 times 1 is 5. Now we're going to subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. And then 0 minus 0 is 0. I'm going to bring down my 9. 5 goes into 39 how many times? So if I have 5 times 6, that's 30. And then if I do 5 times 7, that's 35. Let's try 5 times 8. That's going to give me 40. So I don't want to use 5 times 8. That's too high. The closest, largest number I can use is 5 times 7. And that's 35. So I'm going to write a 7 up here. 5 times 7 we said was 35. Now I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. 3 minus 3 is 0. Now I'm going to bring down my 4. 5 goes into 44 now how many times? So let's finish up our chart here. We have 5 times 9, that's 45. So that's too high. I can now use the 5 times 8, which is 40. So I'm going to write an 8 up here. 5 times 8 we said was 40. Now I'm going to subtract. 44 minus 40 is going to be 4. 5 goes into 4 how many times? It doesn't go, it's too small. So now I'm going to bring down a 0. 5 goes into 40 now how many times? 5 goes into 40 8 times. So I'm going to write an 8 up here. 5 times 8 is 40. And 40 minus 40 is 0. So your quotient, your final answer is 17.88. All right, so let's try 0.14. 0.32 divided by 0.11. Let's set up our division problem. So we have 0.11 here, and inside we have 0.132. First, we're going to turn our divisor into a whole number by moving over 2 decimal places. So 1, 2, going to be right here. And then over here, we're going to do the same thing. 1, 2 lands me right here between the 3 and the 2. So my new division problem is going to look like 0, 11 with the decimal place at the end, which is technically just 11. And then here we have 0, 1, 3.2. Your new decimal place falls right here between the 3 and the 2. So 11 goes into 0 how many times? It doesn't go, it's too small. What about 11 goes into 1? Nope, doesn't go, it's too small. What about 11 goes into 13 how many times? It goes in 1 time. 11 times 1 is 11. Now I'm going to subtract. 13 minus 11 is 2. Now I'm going to bring down this 2 here. 11 goes into 22 how many times? So if we have 11 times 1, that's 11. 11 times 2 is 22. Perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. So 11 times 2 is 22. 22 minus 22 is 0. So your quotient, your final answer is going to be 1.2. Let's try one more. 2.6336 divided by 0.32. We're going to set up our problem. So we're going to do 0.32 on the outside, your divisor, and then 2.6336 on the inside, which is your dividend. First thing first, we're going to turn our divisor into a whole number by moving over 2 decimal places. So 1, 2, which lands me right here. And I'm going to do the same for my dividend, and that's going to be 1, 2, which lands me right here between the 2 3s. So your new problem is going to look like 0.32 with the decimal, which is 32. And then you have 2.63 decimal 36. Your new decimal point falls right here between the 2 3s. So now we have 32 goes into 2 how many times? It doesn't go, it is too small. What about 32 goes into 26? Nope, still doesn't go, it's too small. What about 32 goes into 263 this time? And let's see. So let's see if we have 32 times 6. That's going to be 192. Let's do 32 times 7. That's 224. Let's do 32 times 8. That is 256. And then let's try 32 times 9. That's going to equal 288. So the closest largest number I can use is going to be 32 times 8. And that's 256. So I'm going to write an 8 on top here. 32 times 8 we said was 256. Now I'm going to subtract. I'm going to squeeze right here. So 263 minus 256. 3 minus 6 can't do that. I need to borrow. This 6 is going to become a 5. This 3 is going to become a 13. 13 minus 6 is 7. And then here you have 25 minus 25. That's 0. So 263 minus 256 is 7. I'm going to bring down my 3. 32 goes into 73 how many times? Let's see. So 32 times 2 is 64. And then if I do 32 times 3, that's 96. That's too high. The closest largest number to use is 32 times 2. So I'm going to write a 2 on top here. 32 times 2 is 64. Now we're going to subtract 73 minus 64. 3 minus 4, can't do that. I need to borrow. This 7 is going to become a 6. This 3 is going to become a 13. 13 minus 4 is 9. And then 6 minus 6, that's 0. So 73 minus 64 is 9. I'm going to bring down my 6 now. So 32 goes into 96 3 times. So I'm going to write a 3 on top. 32 times 3 is 96. 96 minus 96 is 0. So your quotient, your final answer is 8.23. So that is all that we have for today. And the key takeaway for this is to remember, whatever you do to your divisor, you need to do to your dividend. So if you move 2 decimal places in your divisor, then you need to move 2 decimal places in your dividend. If you move 1 decimal place in your divisor, then you need to move 1 decimal place in your dividend. Okay? So that's all we have, guys, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.